Yicheng and Shen Yu, who grew up together since childhood, are a pair of happy enemies. In front of them, he is a distant academic bully, while in the future, he is a big brother who plays tricks and clings to people. Years later, she realized that his tenderness was only visible to her. Shen Buyu, let's call out, brother, to listen. Just a few months older than me, you're also good at it. Years later Shen Yu said, brother, I want to eat this. Yicheng threatened, can you call me brother again? Chapter 1. Not boyfriend, brother. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. It's scorching summer, and the morning air is also stuffy and hot. A few cicadas chirping rarely disturb people's clear dreams. Shen Buyu. Shen Buyu got up. Shen Yu scratched his head irritably, covered his head with a blanket, and continued to sleep. However, the people downstairs didn't want to just let her go. Shen Yu, with sleepy eyes, grabbed the alarm clock by the bedside and looked at it, then angrily got up from the bed. You don't have to look at her to know who it is, Shen Yu muttered. Yicheng, you better have something to do. Yicheng blew his broken hair in front of his forehead, shook the meat bun in his hand, and said, get up and have breakfast, freshly baked meat buns. Not eating. Seeing her about to close the window, Yicheng hurriedly said, I'll take you to the town to play later. There's a lively market today. Shen Yu was not very interested. I won't go. Hey, let me treat you to beef noodles and give you a face. Shen Yu's drowsiness subsided in half, and he hugged his chest with both hands, saying, is there anything else? Without it, I need to sleep. Don't waste your good time sleeping. There are fireflies by the river. When we come back from town, I'll take you to catch them. Fireflies. Shen Yu hesitated for a moment as he placed his hand on the window sash. Yicheng saw a scene and quickly added, I'll catch a few of them with pretty little bottles for you. If we don't go out now, we won't know when we'll come back. Shen Yu wouldn't be fooled by him so easily. Then you two should hurry to the town and come back and call me. I'll take a nap first. Don't do that. Yicheng saw that he couldn't move and used his arm to scold Song Ji on the side. Song Ji was also called up early in the morning, still hungry in his mind full of hot buns in his hand. Let's go, Xiaoyu. It's interesting to wander around with a lot of people, but it's not much fun for me and brother Yi to wander around. Shen Yu looked at Song Ji's foolish appearance and his anger dissipated. He probably couldn't sleep anymore when he got back to bed, so he responded, okay, then wait for me for a while, and I'll go wash my face. Upon receiving a positive answer, Yicheng's mouth curved beautifully. Seeing that he was in a good mood, Song Ji swallowed his saliva and asked, brother Yi, can I eat steamed buns now? Yicheng flicked his brain and said, eat quickly, who wouldn't let you eat? Good, good, good. Song Ji wolfed it down. The morning news was broadcasting on TV when Shen's mother heard the commotion upstairs and lowered her volume slightly. Are you up so early today? Upon hearing this, Shen Fu put down the newspaper in his hand and saw Shen Yu wearing a pair of coffee-colored shorts with orange-striped short sleeves, holding a sun hat that he had not yet put on. Yo, Miss is going out now. Let me see if the sun has come out from the west. Speaking, Shen's father looked out the window. Shen Yu crossed his waist and came to the dining table. He grabbed a handful of eggs from the plate and stuffed them into his backpack. He didn't forget to say, did you two bully people early in the morning? Shen Mu smiled and said, I saw you stealing our eggs. Shen Yu chuckled foolishly as if he hadn't heard it. Hee hee, Mom and Dad, I'm going out first. I won't go home for lunch, so you don't have to wait for me anymore. After speaking, Shen Yu quickly ran out of the house. Shen Fu shook his head with a smile and picked up the newspaper to continue reading. Shen Yu ran out of the house and arrived at the place where several people often met, panting heavily against the willow tree. Song Ji wiped his mouth and smiled foolishly, Xiaoyu, you're here. Shen Yu took out an egg from his pocket and handed it to her, here it is. Song Ji's eyes lit up and he took the egg. Xiaoyu, you're so kind. Standing on the side, Yicheng looked at his empty hands and became unhappy. You know, say hello to her and return the meat buns I just had, he said. Song Ji grabbed his head and before swallowing a bite of the egg, he said vaguely, everything is fine. Shen Yu was amused by their childish appearance and pulled out an egg. This is yours, he said. Yicheng proudly took the egg and handed the bun with the other hand. At this moment, Aunt Wu from the village happened to be rushing the big goose out. You guys are meeting here and having a little meeting, she said. It's on, Yicheng said with a stern expression as he took over the conversation. Aunt Wu, seeing that no one was willing to pay attention to her, swallowed her words and drove the goose away. Song Ji pouted towards the place where the person had disappeared and said, how do you feel like you don't really like her? Shen Yu swallowed his last bite of meat and said vividly, if you talk to her now, I can give you a book tonight. Song Ji seemed to understand but didn't understand, and nodded eagerly. Yicheng leaned on Song Ji's shoulder and said, all right, once we finish eating, we'll hurry up and set off. The road to the town is over 10 kilometers long, and both sides of the path are also covered with flowers and plants. Occasionally, several melon stalls are placed on the roadside, and the fragrance of melons wafts when riding past. The sun gradually climbed above my head, and the air became even hotter and stuffier. Upon arriving in the town, Shen Yu frantically fanned his hands in an attempt to drive away his restlessness. You can't be so cool with such a fan. As he spoke, Yicheng took the fan from the stall and asked, how much does it cost, boss? Oh my, the young man has such a good eye. This 2 yuan. Yicheng took out 2 yuan from his pocket and handed it to Shen Yu. He then took the fan and handed it directly to Shen Yu, while Song Ji stood on the side eagerly watching. The vendor smiled and joked, the young man is pretty good to your girlfriend. Shen Yu approached and took 2 more fans, handed over 4 yuan, and smiled, saying, this is not my boyfriend, but my brother. Yicheng took the fan and kept fanning it, his expression unclear. Shen Buyu, when will I become your brother? Can it be said that you are my boyfriend? Yicheng felt a bit embarrassed when Shen Yu stared at him. If one day you can't get married, I can consider it if I haven't married someone, he said. Shen Yu gave him a note on his back, you think it's beautiful. Xiaoyu and Yi, look at what that is. The two of them looked in the direction pointed by Song Ji and were also attracted by their gaze. Chapter 2. Brave Action for Righteousness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The big tree was surrounded by people, and from time to time, there were a few sounds of gongs being played. Shen Yu casually pulled a passerby and asked, may I ask what this is up to? Playing with monkeys, I heard it's from out of town. A few people understood and wanted to join in the fun, but they were surrounded tightly in front and couldn't squeeze in at all. Shen Yu suggested, forget it, let's take a stroll somewhere else. Maybe there will be fewer people when we come back later. Song Ji didn't have much thought, his mind had long been distracted by the distant fragrance. Okay, listen to your little sister Yu, he said after speaking. The two continued to stroll forward, completely forgetting Yicheng who was trying to squeeze in behind them. When he turned around, his figure had long disappeared and he quickly followed the two of them who had already walked far away. Strolling around, time quickly arrived at noon, and the surface temperature gradually increased. As we walked to the corner, the beef noodle shop was crowded with people, and the owner enthusiastically shouted, please come in, we have a large amount of beef noodle at home. Yicheng saw the slow pace of the two and felt a bit hungry. He said to the boss, boss, 3 bowls of beef noodles. The boss wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, all right, little brother, there are plenty of empty seats inside. The 3 of them crowded into their seats, and Song Ji kept swallowing as he looked at the beef noodles at the next table. Shen Yu took out a tissue from his bag and said, you keep your mouth shut, your saliva is almost flowing onto the table. Yicheng poured a cup of tea and took a sip. You kid, if you only have one heart in your body, it's also a matter of heart. Song Ji chuckled and covered his mouth with a tissue, then lowered his head in embarrassment. Pink, be careful not to scald, a few children. The boss brought the powder over and went to work on the business of other tables. The three of them pulled the bowl in front of them and ate it happily, wiping their sweat and shaking their powder. At this moment, a table not far away caused a small commotion. A man in his 30s, with a face full of flesh, said, "Call over your steward." "What's wrong, young man?" said the boss quickly after greeting the customers around him. "Your face is not hygienic, why is there hair in it?" The boss leaned over and saw that there was indeed a hair that looked 5 or 6 centimeters by the edge of the bowl. "I'm really sorry, I'll have the kitchen make you a new bowl," he said. The boss was about to take the bowl to the kitchen, but was stopped by a man who said, "Wait a minute, I only saw a strand of hair at the bottom of this bowl when I was full. It's hard to tell." The boss put down his bowl and said, "How do you want to solve it?" The man rubbed his chin and said, "How can we solve it? It's not too much to ask for compensation." The boss looked around at the customers and also felt embarrassed. "Look, this is also a small business. How about you come next time and give you a free meal, eat as much as you want. Think of me as a 3-year-old child. Everyone, give me a quick evaluation. Who dares to come and eat your unhygienic noodles in the future?" With this, a few customers who had not yet eaten the food ran away, and nearby tables began to whisper. Shen Yu, who was eating noodles, glanced at the kitchen and saw only one person busy. Her eyes turned and she had an idea. The boss, in order not to affect his future business, reluctantly said, "How much do you want to compensate?" The man looked proud and calculated the price in his heart. Shen Yu came over with a teapot to replenish water and casually asked, "Boss, how many people are there in your store?" The boss didn't have the heart to think about anything else, so he casually replied, "I'm the only two." "That's it, but aren't you and the chef's uncle both bald?" The boss patted his thigh and said, "Yes, Chen Er and I are both bald." "How could you possibly have hair on your face?" The originally arrogant man lost his voice and glared at Shen Yu before becoming angry and embarrassed, saying, "Can I still falsely accuse you?" Staring directly at Shen Yu, "I advise you not to meddle in your affairs, little girl." Yicheng walked up to Shen Yu and took the teapot, saying, "Those who are not falsely accused can be seen by those with discerning eyes." The next table couldn't bear to look anymore. How could a bald person have hair? "Hurry up and give the meal money to the boss, don't delay their business." Everyone agreed, "That's it." The man couldn't move and pulled out a few banknotes, tossing them onto the table. Okay, I'll give you the dough," he said before leaving. He glared at Shen Yu and Yicheng and said harshly, "Wait for me." Shen Yu and Yicheng were completely fearless and returned to their seats to continue eating noodles. Song Ji's noodles had already bottomed out, and he wiped his mouth while giving a thumbs up. "Xiao Yu, Yi Gu, you two are really great." Yicheng sandwiched a few pieces of meat from his bowl into Song Ji's bowl and said, "Don't learn from what you did just now. You should act within your means even if you act bravely. Do you know that?" Song Ji picked up the meat and muttered, "Thank you, brother Yi, but I'm only a few months younger than you and sister Xiao Yu. Why can't I learn?" Shen Yu said, "Well, you'll know about it in the future." After finishing the noodles, Shen Yu stood up to pay the bill, but was pressed down by Yicheng. "I looked down on you, didn't I? They all said I'll treat you today." Shen Yu didn't argue with him either. Okay, then it's up to Mr. Yi to pay for it." Yicheng raised his hand and shouted, "Boss, pay the bill." The boss took a look and turned around, taking out 3 bottles of chilled drinks from the iron bucket and walked over. "I'll treat you today, little brother," he said. Yicheng insisted, "How can this work? We can't eat for free. How can it be considered free eating? I still want to thank you all for what happened just now. These 3 bottles of drinks are also included in my treat. Take them quickly." Shen Yu also stood up and said, I'm so sorry, boss. There's nothing embarrassing about it, I just put the drink on the table. I'm busy over there and I'll go take care of it. A few people didn't hesitate anymore, picked up their drinks and walked out of the noodle shop. When it's hot and you're full, it's easy to get sleepy. Plus, getting up early in the morning, Shen Yu yawned and pointed to the nearby stone stool, saying, let's go there and rest for a while. Originally thinking of taking a break, Shen Yu just sat down and fell asleep leaning against a big tree. Yicheng and Song Ji were chatting when they turned their heads and saw Shen Yu sleeping. Yicheng quickly gestured to Song Ji with a hiss, and Song Ji immediately fell silent. Accompanied by the rhythm of his breathing, Shen Yu's eyelashes fluttered slightly, and Yicheng was somewhat distracted. Coincidentally, a gentle breeze swept up and a few willow leaves fell onto Shen Yu's head. Yicheng cautiously reached out his hand, wanting to remove the fallen leaves. At this moment, Shen Yu, who sensed something, just opened his eyes. Looking at each other, Yicheng felt guilty and unconsciously swallowed his saliva. There's just a leaf falling on your head, I want to help you take it off. Chapter 3. The Secret of Heaven Cannot Be Leaked. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shen Yu took off the hat from his head and took off the leaves. I didn't say anything, why are you so guilty? Yicheng stretched lazily and said, am I feeling guilty? I'm just a bit tired and my speech is a bit incoherent. Song Ji, who witnessed the whole process, sat aside and chuckled. Yicheng placed his arm on Song Ji's shoulder, lifted him up, and whispered in his ear, why are you laughing, kid? Suddenly, he shouted loudly, go home. Shen Yu shook his head and pushed the car to follow. It is said that going up the mountain is easier than going down, but this statement is completely correct. Before half of the time, Shen Yu felt a bit tired and gradually fell to the end of the team. Yicheng also slowed down and walked side by side with her. Can't ride anymore. Do you want to take a break? Looking at the cars passing by, Shen Yu thought for a moment and said, let's ride slowly. After resting, I don't want to move anymore. After a while, Yicheng took out a book from the inner pocket of his shirt and shook it like a gift, look what this is. Shen Yu turned his head and immediately regained his energy. Ghost Story. When did you buy it? Yicheng stuffed the book back and said arrogantly, of course you too bought it when you left me behind. A man can bend and stretch, and Shen Yu is no exception. What the hell are you talking about? Even with the courage of the two of us, we wouldn't dare to leave you behind, wouldn't we? Yicheng snorted coldly, let's not do it again. Shen Yu's eyes lit up and he repeatedly replied, definitely. Finally, when the sky was a bit dim, a few people returned to the village. Just arrived at the small pavilion, Shen Yu couldn't wait to bring a storybook. Song Ji glanced at the cover and said, Xiaoyu, won't you be afraid to sleep at night when you read ghost stories? You should know that Shen Yu is a level 10 enthusiast of ghost stories, and his favorite topic to talk about after class is this. Yicheng saw the situation and joked, she would be afraid to see the ghost. Xiaoyu. We're going home for dinner. Shen Yuzheng saw his excitement rise as his mother's call penetrated the entire village. Shen Yu returned the book to Yicheng and sighed, oh, I have to go home for dinner. Yicheng stuffed the book back and said, take it home. I'll come find you to watch fireflies later. Shen Yu responded and rode his bike back home. Yicheng saw some changes in the weather and strong winds, so he suggested returning home. Shen's mother sat at the dining table and asked, where have you all gone to play? Shen Yu hung his bag aside and went to the kitchen to wash his hands before sitting down. I went to the town for a stroll and had beef noodles, he said. Shen's father sat aside and took a sip of his drink. Isn't it the treat of little leaf again? Shen Yu mixed the liangpi in the bowl. Dad, how do you know? Shen's father smiled silently, and Shen's mother patted him and said, eat your food quickly. Shen's mother thought for a moment and advised, Xiaoyu, don't always let Xiaoye treat you in the future. Shen Yu was confused by his parents and said, I know, I'll treat you too. Shen Mu finally felt at ease and said, that's good, eat quickly. After dinner, Shen Yu took the initiative to take on the household chores of washing dishes. Just as he was about to catch fireflies by the river, there was a flash outside, followed by a few muffled thunder sounds. Shen's father walked over to the window and looked at it, while closing it. It looks like it's going to rain heavily, he said. Shen's mother saw this and went to the yard to collect the clothes that had been dried. In a few minutes, it started pouring rain. Downstairs, Yicheng, dressed in a raincoat, knocked on the door of the Shen family. Shen Fu opened the door in his clothes and said, Xiao Yi, come in quickly. Yicheng took off his raincoat and held it in his hand. Hello uncle, I'm here to find Xiao Yu. Shen Fu smiled and pointed upstairs, took the raincoat, it's upstairs. Thank you, uncle. Shen Yu was sitting by the bedroom window, looking out sadly when the bedroom door was knocked on. Shen Yu, who thought it was his mother, didn't look back and said, please come in. Yicheng wiped the rain from his forehead and said, what is Shen Buyu looking at? Upon hearing this, Shen Yu turned around and said, why did you come? It's raining so hard outside that we can't catch fireflies. Yicheng took out a small bottle from his pocket and placed it in front of her. What do you think this is? Shen Yu excitedly picked up the small bottle in front of him and asked, where did you get it? Yicheng shook his head and said, the secret of heaven cannot be revealed. Am I powerful, Shen Buyu? Very impressive. Seeing her happy appearance, Yicheng also smiled knowingly and said, all right, the things have been delivered to Big Brother and he's leaving, so you don't need to deliver them. Okay, you go back and pay attention to safety. Yicheng muttered to himself, if you don't give it away, it's really not giving it away. After saying goodbye to his uncle and aunt, Yicheng quickly shuttled through the heavy rain. The first thing he did when he got home and took off his raincoat was to head straight to the kitchen. But she was stopped by her mother at the door. Wait. What's wrong, Mom? You are mysterious and secretive all day long. What are you doing? If you don't even have dinner, you run out in a frenzy. Yicheng said without blushing or jumping, Song Ji doesn't know a question. Let me teach him a lesson, and I'll go over. Ye's mother hugged her chest, obviously not believing his words. Mom, I'm so hungry. Do you have anything else to eat? No, I don't think you're hungry either, so I didn't leave it for you. Yicheng let out a mournful cry and quickly slipped into the kitchen. After searching around, he couldn't find anything to eat. I went to bed, and if I go out for a run tomorrow, I won't leave you any food. It seems that he will be hungry tonight, so Yicheng touched his empty stomach and returned to the room. Outside, there was still wind, rain, and lightning, but Yicheng lay in bed exceptionally calm. Suddenly, he thought of something and got up, took out the fan from his shirt pocket, carefully placed it in the drawer, and finally lay down with peace of mind. Chapter 4. Future Father.in.law and Mother.in.law. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The heavy rain continued until the sky brightened, and the morning air was mixed with the fragrance of soil. When Shen Mama passed by the Yi family, she happened to meet Yi Mama, who was just about to leave. Mom Yi is going out. Mom Yi turned around to look at her yard and leaned in front of Mom Shen. Shen's mother looked puzzled and said, why are you so mysterious? Did my little leaf come to your house yesterday? Yes, I made a trip tonight. Mom Yi patted her thigh and said, I knew this child must have gone to your house. Shen's mother chuckled and said, your little leaf won't be interested in my daughter anymore, will she? It is more accurate to directly remove the word not knowing. Ye's mother asked with a gossipy expression, what about Xiao Yu and Xiaoye in your family? Shen's mother thought for a moment and said, in my opinion, there is currently none. This time it was Ye's mother's turn to laugh, then let the stinky boy fall in love. Shen Mama joked, you're really a biological mother. He must be his biological mother. It's time to study now, so we can't let him delay Xiaoyu's grades. Yicheng sneezed as soon as he came out of the room, leaning aside in a daze. As soon as Yi saw it, she said, I won't tell you if it's broken. The stinky kid has come out. So when Yicheng discovered the two mothers, there was only one back figure left. He didn't notice anything unusual, but walked over to the low wall in the backyard and climbed over to the next door Song Ji's house. Song's father and mother should have already started working on the ground. The yard is particularly quiet, leaving only Song Ji sitting at the dinner table doing homework. Yicheng leaned against the door and said to Song Jidao, you worked so hard this morning. Song Ji was almost dozing off and fell asleep when he was startled and almost missed touching the cup next to him. Yicheng walked over and put the water glass away. This can also scare you. You're too timid, he said. Song Ji touched his head and said, I almost fell asleep just now. I know there's a place where you can also do homework, will you go or not? Okay. But soon Song Ji's face collapsed again, but my parents won't let me go out today, so they let me sit here and do my homework honestly. After some thought, Yicheng had no choice but to give up. Alright, then you should do your homework well at home. If you don't know how to do it, I can teach you another day. Okay, brother Yi, Song Ji said happily coming out of the room. Yicheng also gave up his thoughts and had to climb over the wall back home. Yijin was sitting at the door playing with the bottle blowing bubbles when she heard the sound and put down her toy. Brother, are you going out to play again? Yicheng crouched down, his gaze aligned with his sister's, and he helped her tighten the bottle cap. Who told you I'm going out? As Yijin was about to blurt out what her mother had said, her little eyes blinked and she swallowed the words back. Didn't you just go out to play yesterday? Just because you went out yesterday doesn't mean you're going out today. Yicheng rubbed her head, but Yijin said, you can just play with me if you don't go out. Yicheng glanced at the little guy in front of him and felt like he was being tricked. He stood up and said, I'm going upstairs to do my homework. You just sit here and play. After finishing speaking, he strode back to the bedroom. Yijin chuckled and continued to lower her head to play with toys. Yicheng racked his brain for a day, but in the end, he couldn't find a suitable reason to organize the game. However, as it got dark, the opportunity closed the door on his own. Yi, come down and help. Yicheng immediately put down his pen and replied, here we go. Yi Mama squeezed her eyes and said, your Aunt Shen and Uncle Shen are here. Come over and greet them. Shen Mama put down the basket and smiled, Harm, let's both come here. What else are we greeting? Little Yi, go and do your homework. Yicheng pulled out his chair and said, Uncle and Aunt, sit down quickly. I'm almost finished with my homework, don't worry. Ye's father cleared his throat and planned to tease his son, say hello well, this is your future father.in.law and mother.in.law. Ah. Yicheng's face turned red with a blush and he stood there dumbfounded. Ye's mother almost couldn't hold back her laughter, and Ye's father brought another dose of strong medicine. Today, your mother and I called for Uncle Shen and Aunt Shen to come, just to give you and Xiao Yu a baby kiss. Shen's mother couldn't hold back her laughter and said, don't tease Xiaoya, you couple. Look at the child's face, it's almost like cooked shrimp. Shen's father sat aside and joked, alright, don't tease my future son. In.law. The adults in the room laughed heartily, and only Yicheng wanted to dig an underground hole to escape from here at this moment. Alright, Xiaoya has a task for you. Uncle, what task is it? Go to my house and pick up your future daughter.in.law. Her mother and I can't even call her. You go and give it a try. Yicheng nodded and then shook his head again. Yi Mama looked as if she hated iron for not turning into steel. If your future father.in.law gives you a chance, why don't you seize it? Yicheng just wanted to escape quickly, and before he could finish speaking, he ran out and said, oh, I'm out. Running into the yard, one can still hear the laughter and joy inside the house. Yicheng walked towards the Shen family with his red ears covered. When he arrived, Shen Yu was watching TV in the living room and said, "Why is your face so red? Are you running a fever?" Yicheng fanned the room and said calmly, "No, it's a bit hot because there's a fire in my house." "Oh, what are you doing here?" "Of course I asked you to come to my house for dinner." "I'm not very hungry, you go home and eat quickly." Yicheng sat down on the other side of the sofa and said, "Shen Buyu had hot pot today. My parents have prepared a lot of delicious food, are you really not going?" "Don't call me Shen Buyu anymore, my name is Shen Yu. Look, you don't leave the front door and don't step outside the second door. You stay indoors all day and don't talk much. I don't call you Shen Buyu. What do I call you?" Shen Yu actually felt that what he said had some truth. Yicheng timely changed the topic and said, "Let's go, I won't call you that after you go." Shen Yu hesitated for a moment and said, "Really?" Yicheng quickly raised 3 fingers and said, "Ye's words are unforgettable." Shen Yu patted his shoulder, speaking and behaving with the demeanor of an elder. "Okay, then I'll go upstairs and change my clothes. You stay here and don't move." "Shen Buyu, how dare you take advantage of me?" Shen Yu made a face and returned to the bedroom with a fearless expression. Chapter 5. Crisis. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ye's mother said while selecting vegetables, "Can ye call your daughter to my house?" I see the suspense. His father and I have been playing hard and soft for a long time, but we can't move. It's a bit difficult. As soon as the words fell, Yicheng led Shen Yu into the house. So as soon as he entered the door, Shen Yu saw a scene of shock on all 4 faces. Only Xia Oyajin pointed at the door and loudly said, "Mom, my sister-in-law is here." Ye's mother was so scared that she quickly covered Xiao Yijin's mouth and said, "Xiao Yu, sit down quickly." Shen Yu was stunned for a few seconds and politely greeted, "Hello uncle and auntie." Yicheng quickly pulled Shen Yu upstairs to prevent his sister from leaking her words. Downstairs, the 2 parents looked at each other, and Shen's father looked at his wife and said, "There's really a scene." Upon arriving at Yicheng's room, Shen Yu spoke up and said, "What did your sister say just now?" Yicheng took out the snacks from the bottom of the box and piled them up in front of Shen Yu. "I didn't say anything, you must have heard it wrong," he said. "How did I hear her name, sister-in-law?" Yicheng was sweating profusely upon hearing this. Fortunately, Shen Yu did not contact him. In no time, a call came from downstairs, "Children, come downstairs to eat." Shen Mama put the washed dishes on the table and said to the 2 people who had just come downstairs, "You 2 go wash your hands quickly." Yijin followed closely behind and washed her hands in a small basin before running to the dining table. Ye's mother, holding a bowl and chopsticks in her hand, almost bumped into Xiao Yijin and said, "Oh, slow down. Why are you running around at home?" Xiao Yijin sat down next to Shen Yu with a smile, hands folded together. "I want to sit next to pretty sister," she said. Shen Yu was amused by her cute appearance and put a piece of sausage in her small bowl. In a gentle tone, he said, "Then I'll also sit next to my beautiful sister." Father Yi raised his glass first, with a happy expression on his face. "Except for the festive occasions, it's rare to get together today. My child's mother and I are really happy. Let's not say much about it. Let's have a glass together." The 2 families raised their glasses and collided, and as the hot pot heat rose, the atmosphere also reached its peak. Dad Yi and Dad Shen sat next to each other, starting to reminisce about their memories when they went to school. Ye's mother and Shen's mother chatted about their daily lives, while only San Xiao was working diligently. "Sister, let's rock and paper scissors. How about the loser answering the winner's question?" Shen Yu supported his face with one hand and looked spoiled, while the other hand put down his chopsticks. "Come on, stone scissor cloth." Xiao Yijin gave scissors, and Shen Yu gave cloth. Oh, I lost. What are you asking? Xiao Yijin lowered her voice and asked in a voice that only the two of them could hear, what kind of boy does sister like? Shen Yu also learned to lower her voice and said, why do we talk like this? Because this is our secret and cannot be heard by others. What he said also made sense. Shen Yu carefully considered before answering her question. What is there that I can't listen to? Yicheng sat aside and listened for a moment, clearing his throat uncomfortably. Xiao Yijin made a face at him and said, sister, let's have another one. This time Shen Yu won. If there is a gift to give to you, what would you like it to be? Xiao Yijin thoughtfully said, doll, I want to make a lot of beautiful clothes for her. The two of them played a few more times and then continued to eat hot pot. After 3 rounds of drinking, Ye's father and Shen's father still have no intention of ending. When Ye's mother saw that she had almost eaten, she said to her own son, it's getting late. You should take Xiao Yu home first and be careful of your safety. Shen Yu picked up his clothes and put them on, not wanting to trouble. I can go back by myself, it's not too far. That's not possible. It's so dark outside, I can't rest assured if you go back by yourself. Before Shen Yu could refuse, Yicheng had already grabbed his flashlight and waited. Aunt Yi, then I'll go home first, Shen Yu said, waving his hand and saying goodbye. Okay, pay attention to safety. Coming out of the Yi family feels like going to another world. A bright moon hangs from the treetops, and the Milky Way is like a reflection of the moonlight, pouring out a clear glow, adding a touch of mystery to the originally quiet night. The two of them were speechless, and Shen Yu was the first to break the silence. Do you think there will be a shooting star tonight? Yicheng looked up at the sky, and Shen Yu thought to himself, I heard that when you see a shooting star, tying a bow with the strap on your chest and making a wish would be very effective. Yicheng continued to look at the road. Feudal superstition is not advisable, you must believe in science. As soon as he finished speaking, Shen Yu saw a shooting star passing by and said, look. Shooting star. She quickly tied a bow on the strap of her coat and made a wish. Under the dim street lamp, the two stood one on each side, with a faint moonlight shining on Shen Yu's face, illuminating her already fair skin even more brilliantly. Shen Yu made a devout wish, then opened his eyes and saw that he was not moved. He quickly urged, today is really lucky. Can you make a wish quickly? How can you know if you are spiritual or not without trying? Let me give it a try, then. Yicheng's mind wavered. Shen Yu nodded busily and stood quietly on the side. In less than a minute, Yicheng made his wish and said, I've made it, let's go. Shen Yu observed something unusual not far away and said, look over there, there seems to be someone. Yicheng looked in the direction of her fingers and saw 2 shadowy figures at the end of the street lamp, as if pulling and tugging. Then came a howl that pierced through the silence of the night, and after a few screams, it quieted down. Yicheng saw that something was wrong and quickly blocked her line of sight. He pulled up her sleeve and said, I'll take you home first. Shen Yu's gaze was blocked, and he wanted to poke his head out to look, but he completely blocked it. The woman's roar was extremely terrifying. Why did you treat me like this? You shouldn't be alive. As the voice grew closer, Shen Yu immediately recognized who it was. Isn't this the crazy aunt from our village? Yicheng turned around and saw the madman walking this way. Upon closer inspection, he saw a reflective object flashing past in his hand. He didn't dare to think much and quickly grabbed her arm, saying, run. The crazy woman blushed and chased after her with a knife. Who's there? Don't run. After running for a while, Shen Yu's stamina couldn't keep up. Seeing that there was still some distance, she gasped and said, no, I can't run anymore. Don't worry about me for now. Yicheng looked around and finally his gaze fell on a nearby tree. Follow me, he said. Yicheng pulled her to the bottom of the tree, then squatted down and said, step on me and climb up. Shen Yu has been afraid of heights since she was young, hesitating and not taking any action. As the crazy woman approached, she suggested, "Why don't we hide in the yard?" No, her current goal is us. If she hides in the yard, she may cause murder to innocent people. He was right when he said that. Shen Yu gritted his teeth and climbed onto the tree, stepping on his shoulder. After she climbed up safely, Yicheng easily climbed up. The crazy woman quickly caught up here, standing helpless under the tree. She raised her bloody knife and danced wildly, "Come down, everyone, come down." Although it is temporarily safe, Shen Yu is somewhat worried. "We can't stay overnight in the tree. It will be very dangerous for my parents to come home later," he said. Yicheng was seriously calculating, "I'll go down and distract her later, and then you'll take the opportunity to report to the police." Shen Yu grabbed him and said, "That's not possible. She has a knife in her hand, which is very dangerous. You can't leave me alone." The two were so close that he could see himself through her eyes, and suddenly his heart missed a beat. Seeing him speechless, Shen Yu shook his hand in front of him and said, "Did you hear what I said?" After a moment, his deep voice rang in his ear, "If you hear me, do as I say." Without giving her any room to refuse, he shouted a sentence to the tree, and the crazy woman turned around. He jumped down the tree with a single leap. Chapter 6. Rumors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Yicheng led the crazy woman away, only Shen Yu was left lying on the tree. Looking down from the tree, the distance was at least 2 meters. Her heart was beating fast, but she didn't care too much anymore. She hugged a thick branch, leaned down with both feet, found a small branch that could support her, and gently stepped on it. Then, she jumped down with all her might. The ground was not very flat, with some small fragments of stones. Shen Yu jumped down and happened to have his arms and palms scratched by these small stones, and the wound was covered in tiny bloodstains. She quickly ran towards the Yi family, but fortunately, the drinking party was not over yet. Her parents were still here, and she propped herself up at the door, gasping for breath. "Quick!" Mom Yi was brewing tea when she saw her anxious and flustered appearance. She quickly asked, "Why did you come back, little Yi? Didn't she ask him to safely deliver you home, and what about others?" Shen Yu regained his composure and pointed to the nearby landline, saying, "Quickly call 110 to report to the police. The crazy woman in the village was just chasing us with a knife, and Yi has now gone to distract her. Let me come back and report to the police." Mom Yi almost couldn't hold the teapot firmly and quickly took out her landline to make a phone call. Shen's mother quickly came over to check if her daughter was injured. "Have you been injured?" Shen Yu shook his head and looked anxiously outside. Shen's mother noticed her torn clothes and raised her daughter's arm, asking in pain, "What's wrong with your arms and hands?" Shen Yu was somewhat absent-minded. "I jumped off the tree and rode, it's not a big deal." After reporting to the police, Yi Mama took out the dressing medicine from the drawer and handed it to Shen Mama, "Quickly disinfect the child, don't let the wound get infected." Shen's mother took the medicine box and sat down with her daughter to the side. Seeing Ye's mother pick up the coat from the hanger, Shen Yu suddenly stood up and said, "Auntie, I'll go too." Ye's mother's voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but now both fathers were unconscious from drinking too much and couldn't be of any use. "I'll be at the door to see if there's any movement. Please clean up the wound quickly." Shen Yu insisted, "My injury is not serious at all. Let's go find Yi, I don't know if he is safe." Ye's mother nodded and took out 2 flashlights from the living room. Shen Yu went to the yard to find a shovel and a hoe to take with him. Then they started. When the police car arrived, Shen Yu determined Yicheng's direction through the light of a flashlight shining upwards in the distance. In the end, the crazy woman was subdued by the police and taken to the police car. The 3 of them spoke in unison, "Are you injured?" Yicheng shook his head. With his running speed, it was a bit difficult for an adult woman to catch up with him. He just needed to make sure to slow down slightly when she couldn't catch up. Finally, led by Shen Yu and Yicheng, the police found the scene of the crime just now. The two mothers recognized the injured person lying underground at a glance and said, "This is her husband Chen. Chen was still wearing his usual white sweater, with obvious knife wounds on his chest and abdomen, and the ground was already soaked in blood. The police probed his breathing and pulse, but there were no signs of life. Before leaving, the police officers inspected the scene, made records, and then gave a few more instructions. They informed them to come and pick them up tomorrow to take notes, and then left. This night, I was also in a state of shock. The first thing the two mothers did when they returned home was to conduct a thorough examination of both of them, and only after it was finally determined that Shen Yu had a slight injury, did they finally feel relieved. Ye's mother took out 2 new blankets from the bedroom and said, "You two should sleep at my house today. Anyway, there are extra rooms at home." Afraid of them evading, Ye's mother hurriedly said, "Look at how the two of them drank so much, how can you get the child's father back?" After working hard all night, Shen's mother was also a bit tired, so she agreed. Shen Yu slept next door to Yicheng, in a different room, and was indeed restless. So the next day, both of them got into the police car with huge black circles under their eyes. Aunt Wu happened to catch Big Goose back when she saw the scene of 2 people getting into a police car. She quickly locked the Big Goose into the courtyard and sat behind the willow tree at the door to observe until the police car disappeared from sight. In the afternoon, Aunt Wu was sitting under the shade of a tree with several housewives in the village, holding the soles of her shoes. Suddenly, she said mysteriously, "Hey, have you heard that the son of the old Yi family and the girl of the Shen family were taken away by the police this morning?" One of the women said, "It's impossible. Aren't these 2 children doing well in their studies?" Aunt Wu said vividly, "Oh my, I have seen it with my own eyes. How could it be impossible? Besides, studying well doesn't mean having good character." The other women became interested and decided to put down their needlework and gossip. "Did you see it with your own eyes?" "Of course, when I got home in the morning, I saw them both get into the police car with my own eyes. Both of them had a bad expression, so they were probably afraid of being caught. If I knew they were afraid, I shouldn't have done this illegal thing. Then tell me what 2 children can do." Aunt Wu turned her eyes and deliberately lowered her voice. "Do you know that the husband of the crazy man in the village died last night?" Everyone shook their heads, and Aunt Wu deliberately didn't say anything, but the content she wanted to express was self-evident. So by the time the 2 of them finished their transcripts and returned, the rumors had already spread to various forms. Some people say that the 2 of them went to the town to steal and were taken away by the police. Some people say that they were involved in pyramid schemes and were caught. Some people say that they conspired with the madman at the village head to kill her husband. They took a shortcut back home from the village path, and everyone they met along the way wished they could take a detour. Shen Yu felt strange and didn't respond even after greeting. "What's wrong with them?" Yicheng was also confused, and the 2 of them were still hungry, so they didn't think so much. As soon as he entered the courtyard door, Songji ran out of the room and said, "You guys have finally come back." Yicheng asked, "Why are you at my house?" Songji pulled the 2 of them into the room and said, "You two, come in quickly. Something big is happening." Shen Yu muttered, "What's the big deal?" "It's mysterious. The village is going crazy now. Some say you two stole things from others, some say you two are involved in pyramid schemes, and some even say that you and the madman conspired to kill the madman's husband." Shen's mother was so angry that she slapped the table. "I think with my thighs, it must have been passed down by Wu Lao's mother. Law. I'll go find her to argue. If I don't do anything serious every day, I'll just talk nonsense." Shen Yu grabbed his mother and said, "Mom, if you go find her now, she will definitely not admit it. Several new versions will definitely come out later." Song Jidao said, Sister Xiaoyu, do you have a way? Shen Yu smiled and said, I have a way. Chapter 7. Creating Rumors. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. At noon that day, a few people agreed to meet at Shen Yu's house. Song Ji looked at the paper and pen in front of him and said in confusion, Xiaoyu, didn't we come here to discuss a solution? What is the purpose of sending us a piece of paper? Shen Yu sat down opposite them and said, Of course, we will treat him in his own way. But this won't break the rumors either. I didn't originally intend to break the rumors, anyway what they said was not true. Song Ji seemed to understand but was about to start writing when Shen Yu stopped him and said, Hey! Don't start writing now. Our task today is to make up stories. I've heard that the rumors in the village came from Aunt Wu, and they spread from generation to generation, spreading into various versions. So today we're going to make up her story. Song Ji scratched his head and said, But I can't make up stories. Then you are responsible for copying. Remember to change the handwriting and mark simple characters with pinyin appropriately. Yicheng sat on the side without saying anything, just picked up his pen and started writing. Song Ji leaned over and said, Brother Yi, have you just made up this? Yicheng continued to write with flying dragons and phoenixes, but nodded silently. Song Ji looked at it for a while and then finished writing. After a while, he leaned over to take a look and went back to write. After a few attempts, Shen Yu couldn't help but ask, What are you doing, Xiao Song? Song Ji smiled awkwardly and said, I'm copying. Upon hearing this, Yicheng quickly took the paper in front of him and said, You can't copy me word for word, can you? That's not true. I replaced a version. Shen Yu was curious and said, Read it and listen to it. Yicheng couldn't hold her breath anymore, which made Shen Yu even more curious. She took it over to take a look and said, Qin received Gui Qin. I've liked you for a long time. As soon as he finished reading the first line, Shen Yu was overjoyed and only spoke intermittently, You made so many mistakes in one sentence, and also explain to me the Gui Qin of this beast. Song Ji couldn't help but laugh and said, Sister Xiaoyu said she wanted to write a little wrong, otherwise it would be easy to guess that it was written by us. Shen Yu laughed with a stomachache and said, Your artistic processing can be down.to.earth, not down.to.earth. Who could tell it's a love letter? She continued reading, Every time I see you magnify my bird's figure, it makes me heart skip a beat. A few people laughed together, and Shen Yu returned the paper to him. Could you please continue writing, Master Song? When I'm not happy, I'll take it out and take a look. After laughing, Shen Yu and Yicheng continued to create, and then the three of them took advantage of the darkness to distribute letters in batches. After the distribution, a few people returned to Shen Yu's home for dinner. Shen's mother asked in confusion, What have you three been doing? You've been mysterious all day long. Shen Yu smiled silently and only said, You'll know tomorrow. The next day, Shen Yu was awakened by the sound of arguments. You scumbag, you've learned to wear a green hat on me, haven't you? Shen Yu quietly pushed open the window and saw through the crack that Wu Laoer was chasing his wife, holding a slipper in his hand. He ran from the west end of the village to the east end, and every household secretly peeked out to observe. Shen Yu was mesmerized by the sound of his mother knocking on the door and entering. What are you looking at? Shen Yu was startled and said, Mom, why aren't you making any sound? I was scared to death by you this morning. I knocked a few times, but you didn't hear me. You blamed me. Shen Yu chuckled and said, That should be because I didn't pay attention. Shen's mother changed her tone and said, Did the three of you downstairs do it? Shen Yu nodded and hugged his mother's slender waist. It seems that nothing can escape my mother's eyes. All right, you can stop at the appropriate time. The person downstairs is not an easy person to mess with. After instructing her daughter, Shen's mother went downstairs to work. Shen Yu's strategy has shown initial results, and the next 2 days will be rumors of Wu Lao's family's red apricot coming out of the wall. On the third night, several people organized the distribution of letters together and swapped the rumors between the two. The next day, Wu Lao's family was arguing restlessly again, and now no one will remember the previous rumors. Xiaoyu, what should we do next? Shen Yu pointed to the book on the table and said, of course, the next step is to do some homework. We have a few days left before school starts. Song Ji opened the homework list and saw that there were still many left. Oh, I almost forgot my homework. I still have a lot to write, he said. Yicheng shook his head helplessly and said, didn't you keep writing recently? Every time I write, I fall asleep. As soon as she finished speaking, Aunt Wu pushed open the courtyard door and walked in, walking straight towards them. Is it the three of you who spread rumors from every household in the village? Normally, you just gather together all day, and I know you haven't done anything good. Yicheng said indifferently, I don't know what the rumor-spreading letter you're talking about is. Okay, I don't admit it, do I? After speaking, Aunt Wu threw the letter onto the table. Shen Yu looked completely unfamiliar and opened a letter to read. After reading it, he said innocently, Auntie, who wrote this? Isn't this spreading rumors? Aunt Wu also hesitated a bit. Didn't they do it? But when everyone came, she had to come out with a reason. Before she could speak, Yicheng took the lead and said, our homework is all here, and the handwriting in your letter is clearly not what we wrote. Upon hearing this, Aunt Wu leaned over and looked around, muttering softly, it seems like it doesn't look like it either. Auntie, we can't even finish our homework, so we won't be able to help you with spreading rumors. Song Ji directly issued an expulsion order. Aunt Wu had no choice but to give up and leave silently. In a few days, the rumors would come to an end. In a few more days, it will be the day of school registration. Shen Yu was about to ride his bicycle when his mother stopped him. Get the eggs quickly, remember to eat them, she said. Shen Yu casually put the egg in his pocket, rode his bike and left. After meeting a few people at the village entrance, they went to school together. After a summer vacation, the campus environment made Shen Yu feel unfamiliar. As soon as the class bell rang, the homeroom teacher brought a new classmate to the class and said, this is Li Sisi, our new transfer student this semester. After Li Sisi finished introducing herself, the homeroom teacher arranged for her to sit next to Shen Yu. Li Sisi sat down and dared not speak, but fortunately, the people around her were quite kind. After class, they all turned around to greet her. Hello, my name is Lin Jia. Hello, my name is Li Sisi. Hello, my name is Zhang Yao. Hello, my name is Li Sisi. Shen Yu sat on the side listening, and when it was time to introduce himself, he simply said, hello, my name is Li Sisi. Lin Jia and Zhang Yao laughed directly and said, we don't know when Shen Yu changed your name. It's all because your greeting was too brainwashing, that I was wrong. Li Sisi's mouth curved slightly, and Shen Yu coughed twice before saying, my name is Shen Yu. Li Sisi repeated her name again, my name is Li Sisi. Seeing her serious appearance, Lin Jia and Zhang Yao stopped teasing her and turned around to take snacks from the table to share with her. Li Sisi politely thanked her and then quietly ate them like a kitten. Chapter 8. Confession. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The lunch break bell rang, and everyone rushed in groups to the cafeteria. Shen Yu took out his meal cards from his backpack and planned to invite Li Sisi to the cafeteria for dinner. Let's go, Sisi, let's go eat together. Lin Jia and Zhang Yao agreed, let's go. Everyone else will snatch away the delicious food later. Li Sisi shook her head and touched the slightly cold lunch box with one hand, saying, I brought my meal. You guys go eat. Shen Yu and the others didn't invite him again and walked out of the classroom quickly. When everyone in the classroom had left, Li Sisi carefully took out the iron lunchbox and wolfed it down. In the cafeteria, when Shen Yu went, he couldn't find a seat for 3 people anymore. Shen Yu gave the meal card to Lin Jia and said, "You guys can have your meal here first. I'll find a spot." After looking around, a table was finally finished, and Shen Yu immediately sat over. At this moment, two boys who were about to walk over and said, "Hello classmates." As soon as they finished greeting, Shen Yulama said, "I'm sorry, this position is already occupied." The boy awkwardly smiled and then left. Lin Jia and Zhang Yao had already brought their plates over. Shen Yu took his plate and clasped his fists, saying to Ren, "Thank you, two female heroes." Zhang Yao said, "In the future, I can take care of all the work of cooking." Shen Yu pretended to dig his ears and said, "It must be something wrong with my ears." Lin Jia chuckled and said for Zhang Yao, "But in the future, remember to copy your papers for both of us." Just knowing it wasn't that simple, Shen Yan shook her head helplessly. Zhang Yao asked, "Hey, do you think Li Sisi is so scared of strangers?" Shen Yu nodded and said, "It seems like it's a bit. It always gives me a feeling of being cautious. I'm probably not familiar with it yet, but it will get better in a while." When Shen Yu returned to the classroom, Li Sisi had already rested on the table in the morning. Shen Yu tried not to make any noise and gently returned to his seat, cleaned the table, and lay down facing the window. As soon as she lay down, Yicheng waved at her from the opposite window, and Shen Yu sat up to confirm again whether there was something wrong with her eyes. Song Ji saw him lying at the window and asked, "Brother Yi, what are you looking at?" Yicheng didn't seem to hear it, so Song Ji leaned in the direction he was looking at and also saw Shen Yu. He waved his hand and said, "I didn't expect Sister Xiao Yu to be right across from us, sitting in the same row as us." Shen Yu also waved in response, glanced at the time in front of the blackboard, and then leaned down again. At the end of the lunch break, there was a considerable commotion in the opposite corridor, and Shen Yu was also awakened from his sleep. Xiao Pang, who has always been fond of gossip in the class, ran back to the class. Zhang Yao immediately called him over and said, "Xiao Pang, come over quickly." According to the old rules, Zhang Yao took a candy from her backpack and happily took it, then said, "There are girls from class 3 at the entrance of class 1 across the street." Shen Yu looked at the crowded area across from him and said, "What are they doing there?" Xiao Pang took a sip of candy and said, "The class monitor of class 3 is currently working with Yi from class 1. Just the name is right on the tip of the tongue but can't be called." Lin Jia added, "Yi Cheng." Xiao Pang responded repeatedly, "Yes, yes, it's him." Zhang Yao immediately looked at Shen Yu and said, "Isn't Yi Cheng your friend?" Shen Yu nodded and said, "Their class probably doesn't have a second Yi Cheng." Lin Jia said, "Did he agree?" Xiao Pang shook his head and blinked at Shen Yu, "I don't know about that, but we still have frontline personnel here, don't we?" Shen Yu quickly waved his hand and said, "This is not my business. Friends never ask about feelings." Seeing that they hadn't given up yet, Shen Yu quickly took out the books for the next class and kindly reminded, "Next class, the old class should randomly check the tasks from last semester." Xiao Pang quietly returned to his seat, but the expression on his face was even worse than crying. Zhang Yao quickly rummaged through her backpack and kept muttering, "It's over. I didn't watch much during my vacation. If I get caught, I'll be dead." As expected, the homeroom teacher started sampling the recitation tasks from the previous semester as soon as the class started. The homeroom teacher looked at the 2 rows of people standing in front of the podium and said with resentment, "You are all sophomores now, and you don't know how to hurry up. When the college entrance examination results come out, you will cry." The homeroom teacher glanced at the qualified students and threw the textbooks onto the podium. "Take all the books back and memorize them. I want to pass the evening self-study one by one," she said. So the atmosphere in the entire class was very tense throughout the afternoon and even before the evening self-study. After school in the afternoon, Shen Yu was about to get up and go to the cafeteria for a meal when he was stopped by Yicheng from a distance. "Shen Buyu." This voice has caught the attention of many students. Yicheng arrived at the window where Shen Yu was located and was about to speak when he was interrupted by Shen Yu. Didn't you say that you're not allowed to call me Shen Buyu in the future? Yicheng scratched his head and said, it's just a joke. I'll definitely do it next time. Shen Yu gave him a displeased look and said, what wind has blown you over? Zhang Yao and Lin Jia stood on the side eating melons. I'll treat you to dinner, give me a face. Shen Yu firmly said, I won't go. As he spoke, he was about to take Lin Jia and Zhang Yao to dinner. Sisi, should we have dinner together? Li Sisi also felt a bit hungry, touched the change in her pocket, and shook her head. Shen Yu and Lin Jia directly pulled her to the cafeteria one by one. Yicheng and Song Ji also followed behind. Shen Yu held a plate and stood in front of Li Sisi, pointing to the dishes in front of her. This is stir-fried pork with chili peppers, this is tomato and egg, that is potato and chicken over there, and... Which one do you want to eat? Li Sisi didn't eat too much at noon, and as she watched, she swallowed her saliva and said, I can do it. Just like you, I can eat without being picky. Shen Yu nodded slightly, swiped his meal card, ordered 2 vegetarian and 1 meat dishes, and handed them to Li Sisi behind him. Here you are, I'll order 1 more of my own. Li Sisi wanted to refuse, but Shen Yu had already turned around to continue cooking. She whispered timidly, I'll pay for it myself, then. I'll give it back to you later. After preparing the meal, a few people sat together to eat, and Yicheng pulled Song Ji over as well. Lin Jia and Zhang Yao's gaze lingered between them, causing Shen Yu to eat restlessly. Shen Yu put a piece of potato in his mouth and said, why did you come to dinner with me today? Yicheng couldn't figure out why and casually said, I'm in a good mood. I want you to be infected with my emotions too. Shen Yu nodded, recalling the scene of this afternoon where he ate silently without speaking. During the evening self-study, Yicheng and Song Ji were still waiting for Shen Yu at the gate. Song Ji searched for her figure from a long distance and waved his hands over his head, this way, Xiao Yu. Shen Yu pushed his bicycle and ran over, let's go. Yicheng took out a candy from his pocket and said, slow down, you're not in a hurry. Shen Yu pushed his hand back and said, you can keep it for yourself to eat. After finishing speaking, I slowly rode my bike ahead. Yicheng looked at the returned candy in his hand, lost in thought. Brother Yi, let's go quickly. Xiao Yu will walk away soon. Shen Yu rarely spoke along the way, only saying goodbye when saying goodbye. Did I make her angry somewhere? Yicheng said as he pushed the cart. Song Ji rubbed his chin and a flash of inspiration flashed as he said, I see. It must be that you called Xiao Yu's sister by her nickname today that made her unhappy. Yicheng thought for a moment and felt that it was for this reason that the stone weighing on his heart became lighter. Chapter 9. Secret love is often a sad thing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shen Yu took a steamed bun in his mouth and put on his school uniform with both hands free, carrying a backpack on his back. Shen Mama stuffed 2 eggs into the side pocket of her backpack and reminded, remember to eat while it's hot. Shen Yu quickly took a bite of the bun and put 3 boxes of milk into his pocket from the box. Shen's mother smiled and shook her head, sitting down to continue eating breakfast. Shen Yu had just left for a while before returning to the room. Dad, my bike seems to be broken. Shen's father quickly put down the dishes and began to check where the problem was with the car. Shen Yu stood on the side, stamping his feet anxiously. Dad, how much longer will it take? I'm almost late for school. The tire seems to have a problem, it needs to be repaired for a while. At this moment, Yicheng and Song Ji saw that time was running out, so they found the Shen Yu family. Shen's father noticed the 2 of them first, Xiaoye and Xiaosong are here. The 2 of them spoke in unison and said, hello uncle. Shen Yu glanced at the time and suggested, why don't you leave first? I reckon I'll be late. Song Ji glanced at the empty back seat of the car and said, Xiaoyu, we can take you. Shen Yu glanced at his father and then at them, still hesitating. Shen's father said directly, could you two please send Xiaoyu? Shen's mother took out 2 more buns in a bag and handed them to the 2 people. Take these buns and go to school to eat, she said. The 2 of them didn't take it and glanced at Shen Yu. Shen Yu said, you guys take it. What are you looking at me for? The 2 of them spoke in unison again, thank you, auntie. After thanking her, Yicheng took the lead in patting the back seat and gestured for her to sit on it. Yicheng took off his backpack and casually threw it into the basket. Suddenly, a distance opened up in the middle, almost causing Shen Yu to flash off his bicycle. Yicheng noticed something unusual behind the car and turned his head, saying, sit still. The 2 of them looked at each other, and Shen Yu quickly patted his back, reminding him, please pay attention to the road. I don't want to risk my life riding a bicycle. Then you look down on me too much. As Yicheng spoke, he quickened his pace, and Shen Yu had to grab hold of his clothes to stabilize his figure. Finally, the 3 of them arrived at school before the self-study bell rang. At this moment, the school gate was crowded with students, and Shen Yu jumped off his bike from a distance. After Shen Yu stuffed the milk into the 2 of them, he quickly ran away. Song Ji pushed the car and looked at the figure who had already run away, saying, why is Xiaoyu in such a hurry? Yicheng pointed at the huge clock in front of the teaching building and didn't speak. Shen Yufeng rushed to the classroom in a fit of excitement. As soon as she sat down, Zhang Yao turned around from the front and asked with a gossipy expression, what's going on? Shen Yu was confused and said, what's going on? I saw it all just now. He brought you here this morning. Shen Yu sighed at her good eyesight and explained, my bicycle is broken. Zhang Yao nodded, intending to continue asking something when the bell for class rang. At the beginning of class, Shen Yu felt flustered and always felt like something was going to happen. As expected, someone arrived at the class gate right after class. Xiaopeng was about to go out and take out the trash when he was blocked by the person at the door. The person in charge was the girl from class 3 who confessed yesterday. Help me call Shen Yu from your class. Xiaopeng saw the other party coming aggressively and put down the trash can in his hand to call Shen Yu. The commotion at the door caught the attention of everyone in the class on Shen Yu. She put on her school uniform and walked out. The girl on the opposite side hugged her chest with both hands, followed by 2 other girls. Are you Shen Yu? Shen Yu nodded and said, what can I do for you? The girl across from her said, my name is Li Lei. Shen Yu remained silent, and Li Lei continued, I didn't expect him to like you. If it's okay, I'll go back to the classroom, Shen Yu said inexplicably. Li Lei reached out to stop her and said, wait a minute, I haven't finished speaking yet. Then a girl behind said, my sisters hopes you will stay away from Yicheng. Shen Yu looked at Li Lei and said, have you finished speaking? Li Lei frowned and said, what is your attitude? Shen Yu sighed and said, as for him and me, we have grown up to be friends. It's not that you asked me to stay away from him with just 1 or 2 words, so I have to follow suit. As for your relationship, I don't care at all. I hope you don't disturb me in the future. Thank you. After speaking, Shen Yu pushed Li Lei back to the class. When Li Lei regained her senses, she found Yicheng standing across from her. She was a bit panicked, and just as she was about to speak, Yicheng had already walked towards her classroom. Song Ji flipped through a book and said to Yicheng, who had just returned from outside, Brother Yi, you must cover me up next class. Turning his head to look at him, he looked completely different from when he just left. He immediately asked with concern, Brother Yi, what's wrong with you? Yicheng shook his head, leaned onto the table, and soon turned his head towards the window. The opposite window was closed, through which Yicheng could only vaguely outline her figure. During the evening self-study, Shen Yu only saw Song Ji standing there alone. Shen Yu asked, why are you alone today? Song Ji hesitated and said, he Brother Yi has something to do tonight, so he'll leave first. Shen Yu was half convinced and half skeptical, then said, when did he leave? Song Ji looked at his class without speaking. Is he still in the classroom? Song Ji didn't want to lie either, so he nodded. Shen Yu parked the car aside and explained, you stay here and watch, I'll go take a look. Shen Yu went against the crowd and arrived at Yicheng's class. Just as he was about to knock on the door to find someone, he caught a glimpse of Yicheng in the back row and Li Lei standing at his desk. Without saying a word, he turned around and left. Yicheng noticed and immediately packed his backpack and left. Suddenly, he lost a sentence, I made it very clear today, and I hope you won't disturb me in the future. Only Li Lei remained standing in place, which she felt very familiar with. After listening to it once in the morning, she was so angry that she patted the table. Yicheng caught up with Shen Yu within a few steps and said, Shen Buyu, wait for me. Shen Yu gave him a white eye and said, didn't you say you're not allowed to call me that way in the future? Yicheng raised 3 fingers and hurriedly said, okay, I promise I won't call you that in the future. I didn't expect you to come specifically to me. I'm afraid you might hang up in the classroom and no one will notice. Okay, that's also a concern for me, worthy of praise. Shen Yu looked at him incredulously and pushed his car, saying, Yicheng, are you sick? I just made it clear to her that she shouldn't harass me again in the future, Yicheng said out of nowhere. Shen Yu did not answer this sentence. Yicheng caught up with her and silently followed beside her. Upon returning home, Yicheng lay tossing and turning in bed, unable to sleep. Her mind was filled with words she had said during the day, and she placed her hand on her chest, unable to catch her breath and continue. Chapter 10. Confession. You are listening at novelfull.audio. For several consecutive days, the temperature suddenly dropped, as if it was winter. In the morning, when I woke up, the windows were covered with window flowers. Shen Yu didn't want to get up from bed, so his mother knocked on the door and pushed it in. She dug out Shen Yu's cotton pants and down jacket from the wardrobe and took them away. Get up quickly, there's your favorite bean pie today. Shen Yu responded softly in his sleep, but his body lay motionless on the bed. Shen's mother shook her head and happened to notice that the window was not closed properly, leaving a gap. She couldn't help but read, oh my, the sleeping window is not even closed. Shen Yu came downstairs wearing autumn clothes and pants. Mom. Cough. It's so cold today. The whole country is cooling down today. Okay, why are you coughing? Before Shen Yu could come downstairs, he felt an invisible pressure and stuttered as he spoke, I don't know either. Humph, I'm not sure if the window is closed when I sleep. When I went this morning, there was such a big seam in the window. Are you leaving the door for the thief? Shen Yu took off his cotton pants from the heater and put them directly on his body, instantly driving away the cold. Shen Mama poured a cup of hot water, placed the medicine aside, and patiently advised, once you're dressed, go eat quickly. Remember to take the medicine after dinner. It's rare to have breakfast slowly today. Shen Yu packaged the book in advance and placed it next to him. Shen's father flipped through the calendar and asked, is school on vacation tomorrow? Shen Yu took a big bite of the pie and nodded. Tomorrow, come with us to the town for a drink. Shen Yu swallowed the pie and instinctively shook his head. Shen's mother brought over the water cup and medicine from the living room table and said, don't refuse. Your aunt has loved you the most since she was young, and those who grew up with you should also go. When you sit together, finish your meal and leave. Shen Yu finished a piece of pie, then poured the medicine down with warm water, put on a down jacket, and walked out while wearing it. Today it cooled down significantly, and Yicheng and Song Ji also changed into a thick set of clothes. Yicheng changed into a black and white down jacket, with the zipper slightly open. The white hoodie inside was well cut, outlining his figure perfectly. Song Ji changed into a dark brown suit and wore a pair of furry gloves on both hands. Shen Yu noticed the two of them from a long distance and said, "Are you both dressed pretty well today?" Song Ji took out 3 eggs from his pocket and handed one to Shen Yu. "Xiao Yu, I just took it out of home and it's still hot." Shen Yu took the egg and broke its skin. Song Ji was about to come forward and hand it to Yicheng. Yicheng raised his hand and pretended to take the egg. Song Ji weighed the egg in his hand and directly skimmed it out. In less than 2 seconds, the egg arrived in Yicheng's hand, only passing by in a liquid form. Shen Yu was stunned for 2 seconds and couldn't help but laugh. He looked for a tissue in his pocket and said to Song Ji, "How did you get the raw egg?" Song Ji explained, "I was in a hurry to leave this morning, and when I saw a few eggs on the table, I took them all." Yicheng's face turned a little black, and he took the tissue handed over by Shen Yu to wipe the egg mixture on his hand. "I should be grateful, but fortunately you didn't have rotten eggs," he said, finally arriving at school. Shen Yu's hair had already been disheveled by the cold wind, and his fingers were already numb from the cold. So Shen Yu quickly parked his bike and headed straight to the heating system in the classroom. Glancing at his seat, there was an extra box of chocolates and a pink envelope on the table. Shen Yu didn't care about warming his hands anymore. He picked up the envelope and looked back and forth, but there was no information. Lin Jia arrived early, and as soon as she arrived at her seat, she noticed the letter and chocolate. "Oh, who wrote this love letter to you?" Shen Yu shook his head and placed the things on the windowsill to the side. "I think they were misplaced, right?" Lin Jia said, "Aren't you curious who wrote it and to whom?" Shen Yu nodded and said, "Of course I'm curious, but it's not good to open it without authorization." Just as Shen Yu had already forgotten about this matter, when she had finished her physical education class, the person who wrote the letter came to her door. Shen Yu finished running and planned to go back to class to rest. However, a boy who was not too tall and had fair skin stopped her. "What's up with you?" The boy was a bit shy and said, Hello, my name is Song Ji. Have you read the letter I wrote to you?" Shen Yu saw that there were a lot of people eating melons on the side, so he called him to a less crowded area before speaking. "Believe it, I haven't read it yet. I thought someone else delivered it wrong. If you have anything to say, just say it here." Song Ji dared not look directly at her and lowered his head, saying, I like you." For a long time, Shen Yu remained silent, and Song Ji looked up at her. Shen Yu spoke softly, "I'm sorry, thank you for liking me, but I don't like you. I'll return the letter and chocolate to you later. Can you stop rejecting me so quickly?" Between his words, Song Ji glanced ahead and then looked straight at her. A gust of wind blew by, and Shen Yugang finally felt the heat. He didn't zip up the zipper properly. Now, he zipped up the zipper and said, "I don't like you. Now, and in the future, it may be a bit hurtful, but I still hope you don't waste your time on me. Wait for me here, and I'll take my things back to you." Song Ji regained his original expression and said, "No need, I never recycle the things I send out." Shen Yu felt that there was no need to continue chatting, so he said goodbye and ran back to the classroom. "I intended to throw the letter and chocolate directly into the trash can, but in the end, I put them in the desk." On this side, as soon as Song Ji entered the class, Li Lei leaned in and said, "How was the matter going?" Song Ji shook his head and, unlike his shyness earlier, looked at Li Lei with a playful expression on his face. "Why did she provoke you?" "Just a green tea, so I need Brother Ji to help me breathe." After speaking, Li Lei took out a pack of cigarettes from her school uniform and carefully handed them to Song Ji after confirming that no one had seen them.